boogeyman is real, and you found him.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
What's blood for, if not for shedding?
I'm your number one fan.
I like to dissect girls. Did you know I'm utterly insane?
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Be afraid. Be very afraid. 7 days.
I am Dracula.
We have such sights to show you, boy.
I said, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains.
I am the eater of worlds and of children.
What's in the fucking box?
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
One by one, we will take you.
Never get out of bed again!
You gotta be fucking kidding.
It rubs the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again.
Welcome to prime time, bitch!
Welcome, horror fans. It is Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central Time, and it's time for another episode of the Week in Horror podcast, the only podcast where sometimes the world of the living gets mixed up with the world of the dead. And if you, dear horror fanatic, are listening to us at the top of the week, that means on Sunday, remember, we do this live every preceding Wednesday right here on YouTube. So we hope to see you in the live chat. This week, we are looking back at select horror films released January 28th through February 3rd. Thank you all so much for joining me for what will surely be a bloody good time. I am JL, and yes, I'm holding the fort down by myself tonight. The guys are busy doing stuff on set. I think they are currently on some gig right now. I don't know. I don't have a lot of details about that, but I will try and deliver tonight. So it's so good to see everybody in the live chat. So I think we have some very interesting films to talk about tonight. And I do hope, one thing I have to say for one of them, no, I would say for two of them, I really hope Eugene can make it, because he said he was going to try, because I would love to get his take on a couple of the films that we're going to talk about tonight, because man, oh man, there's some interesting stuff there. So we're going to get into it. I promise you we're going to get into it. But how is everybody doing? First and foremost, let me get up that amazing Patreon banner. Look at all those amazing names down there traveling along on the Patreon banner. Those are the amazing people who help us to make this show possible with their monthly contributions to the show. This whole thing is possible, whatever we're doing, and plus all the stuff we're doing behind the scenes as well, and not to mention the front row interviews. And I want to thank everybody for the support and the kind compliments for the last front row interview that we did with Sean Hates. That was, oh no, it's not Sean Hates. It was with Jeremy Ashley. Jeremy Ashley, that interview was fucking amazing, and I'm glad that y'all enjoyed it so much. So I really, really do appreciate that. So, but yeah, our patrons help us to do all that. Help us to have have conversations with cool people working in the industry. Help us to do the cool stuff we have going on behind the scenes, like Nail Gun and 11 to 6, and there's so much going on. And right now, big news, probably a few months down the line. So we're gonna find out. We're gonna see. So, but thank you so much to all of you Patreons, all you patron members. You guys rock. All you slashers, and all you possessed, and all you masterminds, and all those individuals who have made this show possible since we started. Way back in 2019. Let's see who we have in the live chat tonight. We've got Raven Darkstar was here first. Good to see you, Raven. Thanks so much for being here. Sherry Tilly as well, member of the Army of the Dead. Yes, you can support the channel via channel memberships right here on YouTube. If Patreon is not your thing, or PayPal or anything like that. So YouTube memberships, you get a whole bunch of emojis that we made for you, a whole bunch of horror icon emojis, and of course the channel badge. So we hope that y'all enjoy those. But thank you, Sherry Tilly. Appreciate you being here. Casey Cooper as well. Good to see you. Thanks so much for hanging out. B. Blanco says, hey, everybody. Good to see you, B. Blanco. Wrote another last name. Gabba Gabba to you. Says, my pet werewolf tried to bite fog. Missed. It was creepily misty. It has been right where I am for like 2 days. Like we had that like kind of cold snap where it rained a little bit and all of a sudden it froze and was just like ice everywhere. And then all of a sudden, and then it kind of warmed up. And then it's just been misty for like 2 days straight, like creepy misty, like pea soup. Like I can't see on the other, I can barely see on the other side of the street. So it's been really, really kind of creepy out here. Because sound travels weird, and if you hear stuff out there, it bounces around, and it's just I'm just like the monstrous spiders with human faces are gonna be popping out of there anytime soon. it's been a lot of fun. Been pretty cool. Been very creepy. Very, I like the vibe. I like that creepy vibe. But good to see you. Wrote it last name. And I see who else. Travis Brown, good to see you. Thanks so much for hanging out tonight, as well as that's right, yes, because Travis, and thank you so much for gifting one of your trivia prizes to Raven Darkstar, because she just received it. So let me see who else we got. John Monahan, good evening to you. Thanks so much for hanging out tonight. Hope you're doing well. And who else we got tonight? Yes, it was me solo, so the show's going to start on time. Anacito Maldonado, haven't seen you in a minute. Good to see you, Anacito. Thanks so much for being here tonight. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Must be slow on the other channels. Strange Lex 790, good to see you, Strange Lex. Thanks so much for being here. Sarcasm as well says, good evening, my parasocial brothers and sisters. Thank you so much for being here, Sarcasm. Javier Hara says, Jello. Good to see you, Javier. Jasper's here. Good to see you, Jasper, with one of those cool emojis that I made. Left-Handed Jedi, good to see you. Thanks so much for hanging out tonight. Joshua Lee says, good evening, everyone. Good to see you, Joshua. Thanks so much for being here, bud. Who else we got? 12 in chat and only 4 thumbs. I think we can do better than that. Thank you, Sarcasm. Yes, smash the like button. I always am terrible at that kind of promotion. But yeah, I assume if you like it, if you dislike it, you'll either smash the like button or the thumbs up, thumbs down. But either way, those interactions really, really help. We appreciate that with the algorithm. But good. Thank you so much, Sarcasm. Casey Cooper says, yep, another solo. Yeah, this way, Ivy Gentry's here. Good to see you, Ivy. Thanks so much for being here tonight. Who else do we have? I know I've got more in the chat. So, because I see the number right there. Jinju, good to see you. Says, always in the realm of the dying. Hello, everyone. Good to see you, Jinju. Thanks so much for being here. Jasper has gifted 5 memberships to the Army of the Dead. What do we got? Let's see. Who was gifted memberships? So, Raven Darkstar and Tony Regime, Glober Mom, Plothole, and Aaron Reese, 2 members of the crew. I've just been gifted memberships to the Army of the Dead. Thank you so much, Jasper. Very, very very generous of you. Thank you so much. Appreciate that support. Tang Whistle is here. Good to see you, Tang Whistle. Tang Whistle CPM. Thanks so much for hanging out. NA, missed you last week. Good to see you, bud. Hope all is going well with you. Thanks so much for being here, NA. One of our longest patrons as well. So appreciate that, bud. Skitch Crasher says, hello, JL. Good to see you, Skitch Crasher. Because thanks so much for hanging out. Brooke McLymond, thank you so much for being here tonight. Appreciate it. Thank you for hanging out. Appreciate it. Yes, Raven, I did hear about Adam. I got the news about that, and I will be talking about stuff over on my personal channel, I promise you, when I do updates on that. So, but yes, I did hear about that, and I'm glad that he's doing okay. Who else we got tonight? Brooke Lyman says, I'm just gonna ask, where the F is Johnny O? Brooke, where's Johnny O? That is a fucking good question. That is a really good question. But I'll tell you who is. I'll tell you who I can tell. I can't tell you where Johnny O is. And I can't tell you specifically where Eugene is. And I can't tell you where Aaron is. But I can tell you where Alex is. He's right fucking here.
What's up, motherfucker? How you doing, brother?
Doing good.
Awesome. Sorry I'm late, everybody. I came in fucking screaming and smoking. But we made it.
Yeah, but I was just saying hi to all the amazing people in the chat, and hopefully, I'm glad that you're able to be here. Interesting movies to talk about tonight, and I'm real, I do want Eugene, if he can pop by, because 2 of these movies, I've got to get his take as a director. Like, I can give my take as a director, but yeah,
there's 2 of them, and then there's one that's kind of just I'm kind of ready to dump on.
No, I'm so ready to, yes. Okay, yeah, I know which one you're talking about. Number 2. I know what you're talking about. You're going to take a number 2 on number 2. I just know it.
Number 2 on number 2. Yeah. What's up, everybody? Good to be back. I haven't seen y'all in a little while. Been a little busy with, I had a surgery a few weeks ago, so I've been recovering from that. And yeah, just back on my feet, figuratively and literally. Yeah. It was hard because I was sitting on the couch and I was like, I can't get to my computer. I had to watch JL go through these alone. You killed it, by the way. I was like, man, I can't wait to get back there. But where the fuck is everybody else?
It's a good question. That is a very valid question. It really, really is. It's I think one of the more important questions that we should be asking. Do aliens exist? Is the universe infinite? Where the fuck is the rest of the crew?
Where in the
will
world
they be answered? We have no idea.
No, but it is good to see everybody and good to see
it's
you.
Excellent to have you
hope
back
everything's
on.
doing well.
I'm glad you're recovering. You're recovering pretty well from the surgery, right?
Yeah, it went pretty well. Long story short, broke a small bone in my foot that just refused to heal. It was tearing up one of my tendons, so they had to go in and just remove the bone out of my foot. And so now I'm kind of learning how to walk on that again without falling over. Believe it or not, you need every single one of those bones in your feet to balance right.
They're very important. Your toes too. You know, it's surprising how important your toes are.
Yep, it'll throw you off. Yeah.
And I learned that when I saw that they actually made shoes that are special. They have like inserts in them that actually can compensate for where your toes should be. So that,
awesome.
Yeah, it's really, really funky. They specialized shoes in order to compensate for it. So you have like the full thing so that you can actually get your balance right. So it's weird, you know?
It is. It's totally weird. And I've been compensating on one side of my foot for so long that when I could finally kind of lean back over on the other side, it was like, hold on, this doesn't feel right. And there's some nerve damage in my foot, so I can't feel half of my big toe. So it's a whole wonky situation. But yeah, slowly but surely we'll get back there.
You just reminded me like when I had surgery on my neck, and when I came out of it, you know, like they were doing all the post-op and everything. It was like, so the doctor was like, so I want to let you know, you're gonna have some numbness over on this side. It was like, yeah. He was like, I can't feel anything. It was like from like the middle of like the midline of my face down to like almost my shoulder. It's like why is it? It's like numb. It's like not coming back. It's like, well, when we were cauterizing in there after we did the removal, then we were doing some cauterizing. I glanced the median nerve that runs along that. I glanced it with the electric cauterizer, and so when I tapped it, it kind of like it. So that's going to be numb. It took damn near 2 years for all the feeling to come back, and it was so freaky because after like 6 months, I'm like, I guess it's just numb, forever.
This is just how I live now.
It's just how I live now. I can't feel this section of my face, but then it started to come back. But then I would get like cold spots. Like I would get cold. Like it would like all of a sudden like the section of my face would be cold. It's like, this is so weird that it would be like warm. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Nerve damage is so funky. I got to ask you, is it foggy down where you are?
Well, it's been so foggy for the last 3 days. So yeah, so I work out in Capel. So I probably shouldn't put that on the internet, but and so I have to leave there and head back to where I'm at, and it's about, it's a good drive. So I'm getting ready to leave, and I look outside, and I was like, okay, it's getting foggy. You should probably hit the road. By the time I made it outside to the parking garage, you couldn't see outside of the parking garage, and the parking garage was getting covered in fog. So I had to go up to the third floor's parking garage by myself. It's dead quiet because of the fog, and fog's rolling into the parking garage. I'm like, yep, this tracks for how things are going. So no, it was insane. Driving through the cities in just absolute dense fog was nuts.
Yeah, you always wonder if you're going to wind up needing. Yeah, you always wonder if when it gets like that, you find yourself in your car. You always wonder if it's going to turn into an end of the movie scenario where it's just like, man, I hope I have enough bullets.
Checking the clip, like, yeah, we're good.
Yeah, we're good. But apparently it's foggy all over the place, like Stephen King missed style. So, yeah, definitely. Let me make sure we got everybody here. Nemo813, good to see you, says, it's just the Coyotes jail. Just keep telling yourself that. Yeah, I will keep telling myself that. Good to see you, John Monahan. Thanks so much for hanging out. I saw that. Said, what's up, JL? Let me see who else we got. Real quick, see if I can run through this.
Alex, I meant you lost your hat. No, it's right here. I got it. Cool.
Oh, he still got his hat. Yeah. Oh, and thank you, Rhoda Nellisam, who gifted 5 more memberships to the Army of the Dead. So welcome, Brooke McLymond, Lori Marie, Insane Angel, Armageddon's Fire, and Gosh of Heckfire have all become members of the Army of the Dead. Thank you so much, Rhoda Nellisam. Very generous. We do appreciate that support. Yes, Eugene Juice's Rooster, been a day or 3. Yeah, we've been a week or 3. So it's been a while.
Yeah. It's been what? It's been about a month, I guess. I don't know. Time flies when you're sitting on the couch with nothing else to do.
Alex is getting the power of He-Man hair. This Travis Brown.
I actually just cut like an inch and a half off because it was getting a little.
I think it's getting a little messianic, man.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. My boss looked at me the other day and she's like, "Getting Jesus vibes today." Like, what?
You're just gonna be like, you're just gonna walk in. Whenever you walk on, they just be like, yeah. Come to me. just walking with a loaf of bread, just started throwing pieces at him. Body of me.
Alex, you can't drink wine in the middle of a workday. It's my blood, man.
Oh, crazy. All right, let me see. Make sure we got everybody else. Let me see. Oh, Brookline asked, what bone? I had a Jones fracture, and the ER nurses told me that there was absolutely no way I broke my foot and drove to the ER. I was 100% broken. So what bone did you break? Do you know?
It was an excision of the tibial sesamoid, which is kind of like, think kneecap. Your kneecap is a sesamoid. And there's two of them at the ball of your foot that they help with leverage when you're walking and balance. And apparently about 7 months ago, I cracked mine, and I have no idea how. Like, I mean, it started hurting back in May, and then I just didn't do anything about it because, I'm stupid and stubborn. And so I walked on it for a long time, and eventually it got to the point where mentally I was having a problem because it hurt all the time, and I couldn't stop thinking about the pain. So I was like, all right, fine. I go in, and he's like, so how'd you do this? I was like, existing? I don't know. And so we tried a bunch of stuff, and it didn't work. And so they went in to take it out, and come to find out that also one of my nerves that's supposed to be the size of just like a piece of hair is like swollen up to the size of like a pasta noodle. And so that's given me grief too. And that could have been from the bone poking into it. And my tendon was all tore up. And so it was just a mess. I have no idea how it happened. So it was a sesamoid bone in the bottom of my foot.
Damn. Plot hole popped.
It's one of those things. It's one of those things. You don't know how much you're using your foot until you can't fucking use your foot.
That's the issue with my back. So like you don't realize it, and it's wild how it's literally just like one section of muscles in my back that if they get strained or if I torque them, then I'm down. And you don't realize how necessary just this one band of area in your lower back is for even just standing. Just how important it is. But yeah, my back's got the same way. All right. Plot holes popped in. It says, you got no one here. I had no one here. I started solo, and Alex joined me, unlike you.
And then he said, Alex, you look like Chad Kroger. And I know that was supposed to be an insult, but thank you.
A little like Chad Kroger. A little like Chad Kroger.
Not at all, but okay.
Let me see. Let me see who else we got here. Let me see. Yep. Plotto's been busy for a minute. Yep. Look at this photograph. That's hilarious. Sir Cab says, I thought Eugene was supposed to be the sex symbol. Ooh. Smells like Teen Spirit.
Don't put a hat on. Don't put a hat on one time. And, who else we got in here?
I see Operation Free World is here. It's good to see Operation Free World. Thanks so much for being here. And Paulo says, wait, Alex broke his kneecap? Doing what? No, but listen to the story. Listen to the story and get your mind out of the gutter.
Johnny's here, but not here.
But not here. It's like we're in Wayne's basement, but that's not Wayne's basement.
Dave's not here, man.
Pull over. I can't pull over any further. He's pulled over. All right. I think I saw everybody. I think I've gotten. So if I missed somebody saying hi to everybody, I apologize. But I think I said hi to everybody. I don't think I missed anybody. But if I did, let me know. Let me know if I missed somebody. I think I got everyone. So welcome, everybody. Thank you all so much for hanging out. I appreciate everyone being here tonight in the live chat. But Juju says, no thanks, look like Chad Kroger. I'll take his bank account. True that, yeah. Oh, yeah, taking his blood hole. He's got to get back to work. Just have fun with the TP9000. I don't think we're going to need it for this one. I mean, the bad one is quite obvious, but we will get into that. We absolutely will.
So let me ask you a question real quick. So I was scrolling through some horror shit, and there was a movie that popped up that stood out that I haven't seen before, and it was called The Loved Ones. Are you familiar with this?
Yes, I am. Australian horror film.
It was an Australian horror film that it looked like it might have been extra brutal, so I didn't know if you had seen it before.
Yes, a few years ago, yeah. And okay. So that was about the girl with the party, and yeah. So
yeah,
I don't want to spoil too much for those who haven't seen it, but it is a particularly
worth watching.
It is worth watching. There's a number of Australian horror films because that's what I love about Australian horror. It's willing to go like the full, like not just Wolf Creek, but you've also got the Furies. The Loved Ones is a really, really good one. There's some really, really solid ones out there that are particularly violent, particularly brutal. Mike 71 is here. Good to see you, Mike 71. Thanks so much for hanging out tonight. Appreciate you being here. All right. Well, you like to say it, Alex. You haven't said it in a long time. Do you want to say it?
Yeah, this is a podcast about fucking horror movies. Let's talk about some horror movies.
Let's definitely do that. So, because you're here and I did the intro, then I'll let you kick it off, man.
Oh man,
what we got at first.
Shit. Hold on, let me pull up my notes here. Oh, okay. Well, this movie.
Oh, sorry. While you're pulling it up, while you're pulling it up. Thank you, NA, for gifting 5 more memberships to the Army of the Dead. Let me see who just joined. Fred Knott, Healing Time, J-Verse, Lexianne, Autistic Shill. Thanks so much for being here. Thank you so much. And you are now members of the Army of the Dead. So appreciate that. Very generous. Thank you, NA. You rock. 3, 4, 5. And yeah, just Lexianne, J-Verse, Healing Time, and Fred Knott. Awesome. Welcome. All right, cool. Back to you.
Back to you, Jesus. All right, we're gonna start this out with a 80s flick. I fucking love 80s films.
Oh hell yeah!
This one's called Venom. Came out January 29th, 1982. We got a trailer.
We do. Have you seen the new Terror Tube?
No, not yet. There's a new one.
Then you're gonna enjoy this.
One. Oh my God, I'm so excited.
Good to see you, Dib. Thanks so much for being here, and let's cue up the Terror Tube.
Wallace, take a look at this.
Sam, he's got a knife! Sam!
I can see that. We have enough.
You stabbed him! You're trying to piss him off? Okay. All right, so what's the plan? What are we doing? Stop him!
Venom. The kidnap that became a murder, that became a siege, that became a death trap. Venom. The fear explodes, trapping both hostages and kidnappers in its grip. The panic spreads, sending an entire police force into action. But this is a terror unlike anything anyone has ever faced. And when it uncoils to strike, your blood will run cold. Venom.
Well, could you tell me just how dangerous, very dangerous is?
The most dangerous snake in the whole world. That dangerous.
The snake is loose!
You'll have to turn over now. I'm not going to hurt you.
Oh, geez, Samson, come on! Watch out!
Whatever you feel, you will fear. Venom.
Whatever you fear. All right, so this film was directed by Pierce Haggard and Toby Hooper, written by Alan Schofield, and it is starring Klaus Kinski. He's fucking awesome. Oliver Reed, Nicole Williamson, Sarah Miles, Sterling Hayden, Cornelia Sharp, Susan George, Lance Holcomb, and then a whole bunch of other people that don't really matter in this movie because you don't see them for very long. This movie has everything. It's got like shitty police work and snakes and Klaus Kinski, and it's like a bad Home Alone remake. But essentially some German terrorists try to kidnap a 10-year-old boy and get locked into this house, and this snake is on loose, terrorizing the terrorist. Oh, how the table turns.
So this
Oh,
is
how the
okay.
turntables.
So this movie is fascinating. I want to say that it's really this is one of those ones where the film itself is not as entertaining as the story behind it. So ultimately, Venom is kind of like a character driven, trapped in a place with a deadly animal. Horror film. The left-handed Jedi is asking, "Where's Sam L?" That's a good question. Yeah, definitely would
These goddamn snakes in this goddamn apartment in London.
So, but I found this really, really fascinating because the film itself is pretty simplistic. It's just people. It's a number of characters trapped in a single location with a deadly snake. That's pretty much all it is. And while the setup is a little bit, I think storyline wise, while it's kind of a slow burn leading up to it, and you get the establishment of all the characters, Oliver Reed's character, Klaus Kinski's character, a number of the other really, really talented actors. Just a fantastic cast across the board. Did you know? In a very small role before they do the break through the wall scene when they're setting it up when the cop comes in like the Kool-Aid Man and he shoots Oliver Reed. That whole sequence, okay, led up to it. The actor who plays Bricktop in Snatch was in this movie.
What?
He was only in there for a few scenes, yeah, but it was just like an early film that was like, early on in his filmography. But I was like, hey, I know that guy.
Oh,
He's like,
okay.
So it was wild seeing a number of English actors that I'm familiar with. But otherwise, it's kind of fun and fascinating, but only because of the talent that was behind it. Oliver Reed and Klaus Kinski definitely carry the film, but there's all kind of great stuff. But the story behind this movie is really what's more important. But I will give them props for this: using a legitimate fucking black mamba in shooting.
Legit.
Because I was like, okay, so because we've seen so many, we watched another one. It was like Tarantula's the Deadly Cargo a few weeks ago, and in Tarantula's Deadly Cargo, they're talking about Brazilian wandering spiders, but every time they showed a spider, it was a fucking tarantula. It was like a red-legged tarantula, and I was like, that's one of the most docile spiders on the planet. And oh no, it's dangerous. So like this. So I thought they didn't do that with this one. Legitimate fucking black mamba that they utilized on set, and although I could the scenes when the mamba, because mamba is a freaky looking snake. It's big, and when it rears up and it can lunge at people, but there were a couple scenes when the snake is fucking flying at people. It's like I thought it was a little much. Somebody brought it up earlier. Is like, Sir Cab says 1982, killing horror tropes and herpetological facts for 40 years. Yes, they made this black mamba out to be like this mass murdering thing because it like deliberately kills like all the animals in the kid's room before it goes to seek out the people and kill them as well, which I found kind of like that's absolutely silly.
It's just the fact that he has this snake in the house is like, hold on, what the fuck? And then you're like,
and it's a simple mistake, they mix the snakes up at the pet shop, at the exotic pet shop, and
because they just have black mambas at the fucking exotic pet shop. But okay. But yeah, it is really cool that they had the real one in there because it's like, if you don't know what it is, you don't know what it is. It just looks kind of, if you don't know what it is, it's not that intimidating. But when you actually read up on them and actually you understand how deadly these snakes actually are, that's impressive. It's impressive that they were messing around with that on a movie set in the 80s. Because how many people were high as shit on cocaine while they were. Yeah, how many people got bit and didn't even get affected by it?
Gigi says that was bold, stupid as fuck, but bold. Yes, it was. It absolutely was. There was actually at the end of the film, at the end, before the credits, there's actually a big thank you to the group that came in and handled the snake and allowed them to safely utilize a black mamba on that set in that particular in that little London brownstone. So, but Sir Kevin says on set is doing a lot of work here. So. Yeah, he would hate this one because of the snake. That epic fucking I loved that finishing sequence when Klaus Kinski is like on the balcony with the snake. And he's like and he's like trying to shoot the fucking thing with the deal, and then the snipers get him, and then he shoots the snake. And that shit was so fucking epic. But this particular one, it's the storyline behind this. Now, the one thing that I find really fascinating is the fact that this movie stars Oliver Reed and Klaus Kinski. At the time, two of the most notoriously mercurial and volatile actors of their time period. You've got, and I'm wondering what that set would be like when you've got Klaus Kinski, who is notoriously cold and very intense and just very off-putting in kind of like the way he approaches things. And then you've got Oliver Reed, who is this boorish drunk who is like probably was not sober at any moment within this movie because that was his reputation, but both phenomenal actors. But the fact that he was also very much a man's man, very macho, and he would fuck with you and like break your balls in order to like, get a rise out of you. And when he didn't get a rise, he'd do it even more. And he was unrelenting. And imagining those two personalities sharing as much screen time as they do for these shots and how that pulled off. But I think that would just be, I can't even imagine that working environment. Probably what led to Tobe Hooper, coming off of this movie, I would say.
Literally just like, nah, dude, I'm done. But no, you're absolutely right. It probably lended a hand to a lot of because there was a lot of like character tension in this film. There was a lot of tension that you could feel, and I think that probably lended itself to that aspect being having because Klaus Kinski, I could only imagine Oliver Reed just trying to like get one over on him or trying to get him to react, and Klaus is like nope, and he'd hold out. Oliver Reed would keep going. There's a fucking black mamba on set. Like that just had to be the most tense situation to be in. Like Sarah Miles is over there. All those reactions that she has because she's over dramatic in all of the reactions in the whole movie, which is great. But like she's probably just letting out a lot of tension through all that, this like, oh, okay, I can breathe now. I wasn't breathing. That's not me gasping because of the snake. It's because I thought Klaus Kinski was going to stab Oliver Reed in the throat. But okay.
When he's like wielding that shotgun around and the two of them, it's like because his character would go off like in a heartbeat, just like screaming at him like that. I was like, okay, it's either watching these two kind of bounce off of one another in this little like apartment. I would be kind of. It reminded me of sequences in The Thing. Because on that one you have a whole bunch of guys, and I don't know what it is about getting a whole bunch of like male actors together. You put them all into one small space, and The Thing was very, very similar to that. Keith David also has a bit of a reputation. When he was younger, had a bit of a reputation as well as being a bit of a hothead. And there were sequences when you see Keith David, like when he does something explosively, like explosive physicality, everyone would kind of like back the fuck away. And get out of it because he'll just go for it and you just get out of his way and let him do it. So, or it was kind of like Predator, where everybody's kind of like, we have on-set bodyguards to protect the cast from each other because there's so much testosterone and so much shit going on. Protect us from Sonny Landham, protect us from him. But I enjoyed this one solely for what they brought to it, and obviously all this. If you are a Snake fan, there's going to be a ton of shit. I see a lot of people in the live chat pointing out that the Snake shit in this film is not it's just not accurate by any measure. While they did use a black mamba for filming, they legitimately did. And the sequence, that's like, I was very surprised by that. The fact it's not the most dangerous snake in the world. It is a very dangerous snake, but it's not the most dangerous snake in the world. It can't fly at people, although it does drop out of trees. It doesn't like leap and fly at people like it did, like curving through the air like a fucking it's a fucking flying snake. It doesn't do any of that shit. So, but what makes this one is the characters in and of themselves, and plus this Venom is important because I think as a horror film it was one of two films that Tobe Hooper was doing at the time, or that he attempted to do during that period in his career where they both failed, and it said the reports are that Tobe Hooper had a nervous breakdown due to creative differences and had to leave the production, then was replaced by Piers Haggard. Now, but from what Piers said in his autobiography was that it was the first AD on the set. It was the first AD working there that was having difficulty with Tobe, and those complications led to Tobe getting stressed out. And when Tobe got stressed out, the first AD went around behind his back to the studio and stabbed him in the back and had him replaced. And so they simply said creative differences to kind of like protect that, and then brought in Piers Haggard, who then came in and was just like, this is fucking chaotic as shit. Nothing that they ever... Now Piers Haggard said that nothing that Tobe shot was used. Virtually none of his footage was used. That he walked in with 10 days preparation. He's like, okay, I'm taking over a movie. I've got 10 days to prepare for this. Walked in, and that was what he walked into. So what we got was a production that Toby set up from script all the way through pre-production. He shot some, but then they just dropped all that, brought in Piers, and Piers basically walked in with 10 days prep for all of Tobe Hooper's 6 months prep to make the movie. And that's why the movie kind of fucked up in that respect. Oh, first AD is the first assistant director. First assistant director apparently had real problems with Tobe Hooper, and there was just a lot of difficulties in between the two of them. And that's what led him to kind of like, backstab Tobe Hooper and get him off the project. And then they brought in Piers, and then they got the movie done. So there was all kinds of communication issues on this shit. And not to mention that kind of chaos behind the scenes is going to translate to probably Kinski and Oliver Reed and lead to some real chaos.
With the tension that was already probably on set, I wasn't there, so I don't know, but the tension that was already there, and then having that dynamic, that movie could have flopped real hard if Toby didn't walk. And I wouldn't doubt that he, they probably knew right off the bat it wasn't going to work, and had already been, and it works. And for that actually happening, and for all that happening on set, it actually turned out pretty good. It's it's not the greatest movie in the world, but it was a good movie. The character dynamic was awesome. The cinematography in this movie was great. Just using kind of like the dreary London background as, as using it to the cinematic advantage was really shot really well.
I thought, I really enjoyed what Toby had set up with, like, Toby's whole premise is like having this particular style brownstone, so that when you're in there and you've got these phenomenally huge personalities and these actors, and then utilizing the architecture itself as very much to put the character in there, that these characters are now trapped in not only a small space, but in a tight and narrow space, and using the angles of the brownstone itself, using the angles of the walls and the angles of the staircase in order to convey this sense of disorientation, and being able to do that plays off the fact, allows us to sink into the fact that the plan has gone awry. Initially, it was supposed to be a kidnapping. Get in, get the kid, get out, hold him for ransom, get the money from the rich parents, and then piss off. And then try to escape with the money. But now that everything's off, now we get this fantastic kind of like spiraling, almost kind of like, weird angles, and the angles get inside the apartment. The angles get even more and more off as things, spiral out of control. Starting with when Susan George, the amazing Susan George, who is the first casualty, when you saw that, and I love that set. I will say this, that setup was brilliant, when she's like, okay, we'll open the box like this. And then the kid's like, and she's not even looking, and the kid just opens the crate, and he looks inside. I'm like, holy shit. And she turns around face first right into that shit. There were some good moments there. And then, of course, I would say it's the characters that sell this one. It was really, really enjoyable. I wish I could have been a fly on the wall of that set and to see what the fuck was going on.
Nuts.
Yeah. And of course, I also have to mention Michael Goff is in this one as well, who's Alfred in the Batman films. He shows up as a snake wrangler towards the very end. Like, he was in there for a few shots, and then I can't remember the other actor's name. The guy who was fucking the guy who played Bricktop. I can't remember his name specifically off the top of my head. Who had a bit role in there really, really quick. And then, of course,
that's what his name is.
Yeah, that's what his name is. And then John Forbes Robertson as well, who played Sergeant Nash in the film, and he was in there for a brief moment as well. But John Forbes Robertson was the only other actor to play a Dracula for Hammer Horror other than Christopher Lee.
Huh.
So the cast that Toby put together for this film is phenomenal. Even the bit parts are all extremely talented people. Toby cast it perfectly. Now, originally, this is fascinating. You remember Raiders of the Lost Ark, right?
Of course. So,
Raiders of the Lost Ark, one of the was Tote. I can't remember. I want to remember his name. I'm trying to remember his name. Yes, Arnold Tote. Who was the Arnold Ernest Tote? Yes, played by Ronald Lacey. Okay, so Ronald Lacey played what was his rank? It was like Sturman. It was like Sturmenführer or something like that. But he was a Nazi, and famous to use the black hat, does the melty scene like this. Now, originally, that role was not supposed to go to him. Steven Spielberg had envisioned Klaus Kinski in the role of Arnold Tote.
Okay, see, that would have been fucking great.
Okay, because of that, because of his, the way he talks, you can hear it in his voice.
Right.
You can see the similarity there. So originally, Tote was supposed to be played by Klaus Kinski, but Klaus Kinski, in his autobiography, stated that he read the script for Raiders and thought it was, in his own words, moronically stupid. And he passed on Raiders to do Venom.
Hey, if it's not about the money at that point, then if you're not feeling it, you're not feeling it. It went on to be one of the most successful films ever. But and you know what though? I think Toth played a really good role in that.
Oh, Ronald Lacey was amazing. He was like, shoots at both. I love what he brought to that. Now, Klaus Kinski would have been fascinating in that role. See what kind of energy he brought to that. Not to mention the stories that we could have gotten from Klaus Kinski being on set with Harrison Ford, because Harrison Ford is notoriously laid back, very chill dude, doesn't take anything really like overtly serious. And then Klaus Kinski, like, Klaus Kinski, I have to hear those two kind of like going off one another would have been hilarious. Story, not to mention him working with being on set with Spielberg and shit. That would have been wild. But I found that to be fascinating that he passed on that. He passed on fucking Raiders of the Lost Ark in order to do the movie Venom, and apparently it upset. Like there was a lot of craziness. Tony Regime, good to see you, bud. Thanks so much for being here tonight. And I just found that to be intriguing. That, and then of course that there was a lot of craziness there because they brought in Klaus Kinski because they originally he was supposed to be like this kind of like creepy Nazi guy, and they really wanted to push the Nazi elements of it. It was like, oh wow, and because whatever. And then it was Haggard that actually changed it up a little bit in order to really convey him as kind of like, he's a creepy German dude. There may be some ties there, but he wanted to limit that kind of like overt Nazi references in that. So.
Right.
But yeah, it's an interesting movie in that respect. And I think interesting because of its connection to Tobe Hooper's filmography, in that it was one of his two failed films in which he came on, became overwhelmed, or something happened, and then he had to pull out, someone else had to come in. It almost happened on Poltergeist, thanks to Steven Spielberg. Spielberg came in and kind of saved that movie. It almost happened there. But it happened on two other films. It was Venom and a crime thriller that he was doing. It was supposed to be like Hooper became fascinated with kind of like the downtown London area, and he wanted to shoot movies there. Like he loved it. And so this was supposed to be one of them, was Venom. And then there was another one I can't remember the name of, but both of them, he wound up not actually finishing because it was just like too chaotic. And I guess he I don't know about stress level. I guess he couldn't handle it much. I hate to speak ill. I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but
who knows? I mean,
Texas Chainsaw maybe took it out of him.
Maybe some people have a hard time recovering from that. Could be it. Sometimes you have a hard time recovering from those big films like that, or particularly gruesome films. Maybe he had a bad experience on set somewhere else, and it was triggering him. I don't know. I wasn't there. But it kind of sucks because it could have been something different. It was there for sure, but
it's interesting that it's kind of wild to think that Tobe Hooper fell kind of prey to the politics I would say in British filmmaking. I'm going to say this is a British film, it's British American production, but the idea that James Cameron ran into the same shit. Into difficulties with the English crew or the British crew that he had when he was doing Aliens, and that they almost revolted against him, and there was just this clash between his vision of what he had and how much they trusted him or not, and then of course their own idea of how a film production was supposed to go, and they almost derailed Aliens, and luckily he was able to turn that around and gave it one of the best sci-fi horror films out there, and that Tobe Hooper kind of fell prey to it as well. I wish there was more. Toby didn't speak about it very often. Didn't speak about it much in his own stuff. Kind of like just moved on, did his own thing. But yeah, I think it's so interesting to think about what could have been different if Toby had stayed with the production or if they or and really utilize the actors as he wanted them to utilize. Maybe I don't know that I think that the elements were there to make a really fantastic film. Real Snake, real legit dangerous Snake, charismatic, powerful actors, really interesting set, and just all these cool elements that came together to tell this kind of like this horror story track in there about these people dealing with the snake and everything. And it just kind of fell flat. And even Piers Haggard will say that, it kind of like fell on its face because the elements were there to make something really brilliant. And it just didn't happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, like I said, it was there, but it just never. It was midline. It was mediocre. But being the 80s, it definitely had some hype to live up to around other films of the time, and it just kind of went unnoticed because, it could have been better. But yeah, I mean, since we're here and we're talking about it, I think maybe I'll pull up the CTA on this because that's something I'd like to know from the audience. Do you think Tobe Hooper could have done it better if he would have stuck around? If he was at, his 100%, do you think he would have been able to make this pop a little bit better? Do you think he could make it a little more striking? Let us know down in the comments.
I think it would have been interesting, if Hooper. That's interesting to think about if with Tobe Hooper and Tobe Hooper's style, which we see evident in a number of, like, obviously the guy who gave us the Toolbox Murders remake, the guy who gave us Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now this is very, very much a different kind of beat, but I think his style would have lent a little bit better, and he would have utilized the snake a bit more to a more horrific effect. And I think it wouldn't have felt so procedural because it was Piers Haggard, who is if you look at his filmography, is very kind of like a by the numbers formulaic kind of director. He's like, this is what you do, this is how you go, like that. And he took the story in, I think, the easiest way possible. It was still creative and some good, smart shots, some good, smart cinematography in there. But I think ultimately Tobe would have lent a little more creativity to the horror elements of the film and utilized the snake to a better effect instead of being such a kind of formulaic procedural kind of horror film.
It comes off more thriller than horror, and that's where I think it would have differed if Tobe Hooper stayed on set. It would be more horror, it'd be more grotesque as opposed to more thriller-like, because it was kind of a mixed thriller horror.
Right.
Film.
Let's see. Some Werewolf, good to see you. Some Werewolf, thanks so much for hanging out tonight. Appreciate you being here. Extra Day as well, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. And Sir Captain says, I agree that Tobe could have made it better if they'd included his input, but it would have been a dramatically different movie. Agreed. And Piers Haggard himself, Piers Haggard himself agrees with you. He says the film would have been, demonstrably different if they had Tobe continued and they ran with that. But, just the creative issues behind their politics or whatever it might be. The fact that Piers Haggard picked up that baton with 10 days of prep for production to walk into a set where you already know you're walking with Klaus Kinski and Oliver Reed, and you've got a first AD willing to kind of like, run around behind you to get you in the back. It was looking for that opportunity. That's a dangerous thing to go. So, go in there, don't take any risks. You've got the pieces, just put them together and, that's it. So that's pretty much it. Oh yeah. So, but I'll give that. So let us know down in the comments below at weekinhorror@gmail.com. Could Tobe Hooper have done it better if he'd stayed with the movie? I'd be very curious to hear what people think. I really do. All right. Let's move on to our next one. What do you think? This is the one because we talked about the inspiration behind this one before on the show, and we all loved it. So, but now we're going to talk about the Uninvited, which released January 30th, 2009, and technically a remake of the Korean horror film, A Tale of Two Sisters, right? Yeah. Which we talked about on the show a couple seasons ago. But now let's dive into the remake. So let's check out the Terror Tube. What do you think? What do you think of the Terror Tube?
That's awesome, brutal.
So yeah, but I set it up so it's like flipping through channels to get to the trailer. So
no, I like it.
Yeah. So here we go. Cue up the Terror Tube.
lost your mother in the fire. Maybe it's not such a bad thing to forget. Go home. You'll figure it out.
Alex! Oh, I missed you so much. I assume you saw Dad's new girlfriend. I'm so glad to have you back. I hope it works out so you can stay.
Anna, I'm sorry. I meant to tell you about Rachel.
When did she move in? A month ago. She's helping him cope 3 times a night. Listen, Anna, I know that you're supposed to hate Dad's new girlfriend, but I'm really hoping that we can make this work. You're too late.
Alex, something happened.
Yeah?
I had a dream. There were children. I think they were trying to warn us.
Your daughter got it in her mind somehow that your fiancé killed the family she worked for.
Look at this. We need to find out who Rachel Summers really is.
I want you to think about whether or not you are ready to be part of this family.
You know what, Anna? I don't think this is going to work out.
You're next.
I thought that I was dreaming, but I wasn't. Look!
Okay, now I'm afraid. Pretty little Anna. You're not gonna ruin this for me.
All right, that was the trailer for The Uninvited, directed by the Guard brothers and screenplay by Craig Rosenberg, Doug Miro, Carla Bernard, and based on A Tale of Two Sisters by Kim Ji-woon, starring Elizabeth Banks, Emily Browning, Ariel Kebel, and David Strathairn. Strathairn. And the film, I mean, I pretty much gave it away with that. The film is a remake of A Tale of Two Sisters, and it pretty much follows that. Essentially, if you haven't watched it, a young girl gets out of a mental asylum, returns home after spending 10 months there after a self unsubscribe attempt, and because there's certain words we can't use, and
I like that one. That's clever.
And so returns to find that the woman, the nurse, the live-in nurse who was taking care of her mother when she was sick before her mother died, has kind of like become the dad's new girlfriend and is kind of like moving into the family. And through a result of what appears to be ghostly intervention or some supernatural events, the young woman begins to believe that the caretaker is not who she says she is and may have been responsible for her mother's death. But things get far wonkier from there because unreliable narrators being what they are, she's actually the villain of the piece. But yeah, the story itself
ruined it.
I mean, the film came out in the like 2000. This came out in 2009. It's a remake of a fantastic Korean horror film. Tale of Two Sisters is magnificent, and that's an adaptation of an actual like a Korean folk tale, which is been around for centuries. And Tale of Two Sisters was magnificent in this respect. Remember, there's a 5-year moratorium, Tang Whistle, 5-year moratorium on spoilers. Okay. So if it's within 5 years, if it's within 5 years, we won't spoil it. Okay, well, we'll try not to. But if it's more than 5 years, we'll pretty much do that. I could tell JL saw my comment by the pause in his spiel. This is true. But yeah, this one, fucking hell. Okay, let me just ask you this one.
Okay,
this is honestly, in my opinion, just another sad fucking facsimile is what this was. But what is your take on this, given the experience there?
It was a ride because I remember I just gotten out of high school when this came out, and so I was on a kick of movies, and this one I was like, oh, Emily Browning, and then you're like, oh, it's Elizabeth Banks. And I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a shitty movie. And
you don't like Elizabeth? Wait, you don't like Elizabeth Banks?
I don't. think she does. No, I love her. She's great in like comedy. I just whenever she does serious roles, I just can't take her seriously because she's so fucking funny. But so it was like, oh no, I don't know how to feel about this. And I went into it and it started out and I'm like, okay, dramatic, okay, we're getting there. And then it just starts going left, right, left, right, left, right. And it's like, okay, halfway through, you're like, okay, I see what's going on. And then you're like, maybe I don't. And then you're like, no, it was definitely what I thought. And then I don't know. It was good in the respect that the twists and turns were plenty and they weren't totally shit. They kind of played with you a little bit, which was cool. Back in, what was it, 2009, that time period alone for movies, it was hard to do that kind of stuff because everybody was doing it. So seeing that and watching it go back and forth the whole movie and not just give itself away right away, in my opinion. I mean, it might have for other people, but that something to hold on to for the whole movie is what I'm trying to get at.
Well, the kicker that got me, the biggest thing, the biggest failure, and why this occurs like this between Eastern horror films, I guess between Eastern horror films and Western horror films, or this Western take on this Eastern horror film, is that the general psychology of, or the difference in approach in the psychology of the two sides is that Eastern horror films really, really focus on the internalization of the horror, that which is scary is coming from within. And right. that experience and the internal experience, whereas Western horror films focus on the external experience, the things outside of your control that may be coming for you that you don't know are there. So it's about what's outside and what's inside. And because of that, I found the one big killer, the one thing that shot this whole production in the foot, okay, was a cinematography issue. Because trying to convey that internalization aspect, it comes down to an acting choice. It comes down to acting choices. The reason A Tale from Two Sisters works so well is because of the stepmother, or the mother, the woman coming in, the nurse, the caregiver coming in to kind of like come in and marry the father. That whole issue right there is the way they set her up. Her character choices allow us to not recognize that the sister is actually an alter of the daughter. That's what it allows us. So it requires that. It requires that interaction between the daughter that's there, the daughter that's just returned home, the supposedly evil caretaker, and the sister who is supposedly there as well, but we know is not. And so those choices come down to the actress who plays the mother, who plays the character, the nurse. Her interactions, her standoffishness, her like kind of coldness, as a result of her being afraid of the girl and not. But that's because we're getting the whole story from the young woman's perspective, internalizing what this new woman is doing. That requires phenomenal acting. The problem with this is that they take that burden off in the American version, and often we see this a lot of times. They take that burden off of the actors, they put it onto the cinematographer and how they're going to frame a shot, and they give away the ghost when they try to showcase the sister interacting with the other family members. That very first sequence, if you're watching close, and I picked up, not just because I knew it, but because I knew it, I knew what to look for as far as camera angles go. There's a sequence at the very beginning when she says, "I'm going to go in and talk to Dad," and then she hears them arguing, or she hears her sister arguing there in the office. If you look at David Strathairn's eye line, his sight lines, they never go to the daughter. He's sitting in the chair and she's yelling at him. He never reacts to her. She says something pretty mean. He doesn't even flinch. And when he turns the chair, he's not looking at her. All the cinematography, that one shot is what pulls the rug out from underneath you to let you know that sister, that girl is not actually around. She's not actually there in the scene. That's problematic because they don't allow for that internalization of the horror. We have to externalize everything so that we have a certain sense of that's just the way how American storytelling works in that respect, because it was the simplistic and minimalism of the cinematography in the Korean version and allowing those actors to shoulder the burden of their internalization of the horrific things that are going on that help us to keep certain elements away from us. We never realize in the Korean one, unless you're familiar with the folk story, you never really are hinted that the sister is not actually there because the mother reacts to both children the exact same way.
Right.
Okay. And her destabilization, which makes it look like she's crazy and she's dangerous, is actually a result of her interacting with our narrator, which is the young girl, told the story from her perspective. But because she's unreliable, we're getting all false information. We never get that in this film. Everything is on its face. The cards are on the table. And if you watch, it's very fucking obvious. Or, like Sarcasm says, you're polishing, JL. I love you, but this was insanely telegraphed. It was absolutely. You're right.
Yeah.
It was insanely telegraphed. They telegraphed all of it. Anybody who is watching the film can see just by watching the actors that sister is not there. She's never been there. They never react to anything she says. She like, even when she pops up, they don't even like look to acknowledge her. Okay? Not even in a moment of frustration to kind of mask it. And then come back. Which or little simple tricks to mask that, but nope, they give away the ghost. They for all intents and purposes, they give away the ghost.
They literally give away the ghost immediately. And that's, I'm
sorry, I was about to pop off on the ending because the way they ended it pissed me the fuck off because they literally set it up. It's like she's out. She's been doing all this hard work. She's snowed. Like she her therapist there. They're gonna release her. She's going back home. And then at the very fucking end, they hint that it was all her fucking plan. That this was planned all along.
And it's like,
but
wait.
yet the entire with the whole I was like, how are you doing? It's like, I'm good. I finished what I started. Wait, so the whole show. So why all the fear and the uncertainty and the I don't remember and my memory's all fucked up and all that shit. Why?
Yeah, like it just all of a sudden clicked. No, okay, maybe she was crazy the whole time. Fine, but like you kind of get. I don't know. They played into it. And I think it's hard because if you're gonna direct this movie, you got to know that it's been done before, and you got to know that some people are going to know that it's been done before. So you would think that you would be a little more careful with those aspects, those big plot holes, since Johnny's not here. But they do. And I guess now that you mention it, it's because I noticed it. I didn't notice how bad it was until you started railing on it. But they don't. She's never acknowledged. And yeah, I don't know. Tale of Two Sisters was so good. And then I saw this before I saw Tale of Two Sisters. But the dad pissed me off. He played way too well into the piece of shit dad not paying attention to his kid, and that's, I don't know, mad most of the movie because of that, and then you find out it wasn't him, But yeah, it was twisty turny. The jump scares were terrible, but the rest of it, I mean, cinematically, it was all right. But
now, cinematography wise, I'll give it that. The film is shot very, very well. It's got DreamWorks money behind it.
Yeah.
The production itself was really, really streamlined. You could tell that there's a lot of shots that are really good. I found that some of the lighting choice, some of the sound choices were really, really solid. Some of them were pretty obvious, like hear a noise, ghost. Jump scares were all telegraphed. That was the throwaway. But I did particularly enjoy what I liked the most is how the Guard brothers framed a lot of the sequences. A lot of those moments where the sweeping kind of camera moments where the camera leads up to what you're supposed to be seeing, or conveying Emily Browning's or the daughter Anna's kind of like experience there in the moment. I do like how they do some of that. Some of the framing and some of the shots are really, really pretty. Really, really beautiful. I love the area where they shot. That was a fantastic area. Yeah, the coastal area is fantastic. And the lighting, sound, all of it worked really, really well. I will say, and I will agree with you on this, I think Elizabeth Banks was I think that the idea of bringing Elizabeth Banks in was a good idea, but I don't think it should have been Elizabeth Banks. That I think that part of that physicality in playing that role as being you're portraying a character that is being misinterpreted by the protagonist or by the protagonist themselves, by the narrator of the story. We have Anna's perspective of the soon to be stepmother, Anna's perspective is skewed. She is interpreting everything that her daughter, that the would-be stepmother is doing in a negative way. She's misinterpreting everything she's doing. That's important because it should allow for the reveal towards the end. Elizabeth Banks, as much as I love her in comedy, she's fucking hilarious, and I think that her place in comedies, she's perfect as like the crazy hot chick who is also like goofy physical funny. She's perfect in that. Loved her in Slither, loved her in Zack and Miri. A lot of the stuff I think she got some problems as a director. The whole Charlie's Angels fiasco was not good, but but nonetheless, as a performer, she's great. But her ability, when she was trying to convey that character aspect in the way to say, ooh, is she actually evil? It comes off way too harsh, And there was like legitimately, it was like, well, hang on a sec. Why the overt sounding threatening? Why like the Pearl sequence?
Right.
Why and then her use of profanity went away from the husband, away from her father. To dive into, I was like, oh, because I'm hip and cool and young with the kids, and I can use bad language too. It's all way too telegraphed. It's way too forced and telegraphed. I'm not gonna say I don't think for all her talent, Elizabeth Banks could try, and I'm glad she didn't try to copy the performance of Yum Young Ha, who played Yunju in the original television, to take that performance, try to copy it over. That would have been a terrible mistake, because even though I think David Strathairn did copy a bit from the dad, that kind of aloof, absent-minded, kind of like, he's there, but he's not really all there because he's still dealing with the trauma and shit.
It's like a lack of empathy, and it comes off more just brash, and it just not good. Like other people said, it was just American film taking, K-horror and screwing it up. We're really good at that.
It happens. The list is long and distinguished, the amount of J-horror or K-horror or other Eastern horror films that have been completely fucked over by the American remakes. Someone, I think it was someone brought up that Sarcasm brought up the reason that The Grudge was good was because of Sarah Michelle Gellar, and I will agree. Sarah Michelle Gellar brought a fantastic energy to that role, and I've always been very, very, one of the reasons why I like Sarah Michelle Gellar so much, although I was a big crush when I was younger, but it's because
the Buffy crush,
besides the Buffy crush, was her incredible dedication to her craft. Is that she will always she'll do what is absolutely necessary in order to convey the story. The story and the script come first. That is why she has kind of a reputation of being kind of old Hollywood. She's a slave to the script, and then this is what the script says. So it's script, director, actor, in that kind of mentality, is that we all work from the script. The director interprets this, and then I convey what the director's interpreting that, and then we work together as a team on how we are interpreting the script. And because of her professionalism, because she's so dedicated to what she does, that's what makes that movie so good. She has that kind of capability. But unfortunately, and I honestly think I like Emily Browning as well. I think she was also kind of like miscast in this as well. Just not great casting, not great, in trying to Americanize this kind of storytelling is just not good. So not to mention the ending of the Korean one was so much more horrific than this one. They said, in my eyes, they sanitized the horror a bit in order to go for the more visual ghost appeals, but they sanitized it with like the exploding guest house.
Yeah.
Being asphyxiating slowly to death, being by a dresser in the that's terrifying to me.
Right.
So that it was just sanitized and weak, and just I couldn't stand it. It fucking pissed me off.
No.
Sarcasm, thank you so much. It was gifted 5 more memberships to the Army of the Dead. Welcome, Skooma Cat, Crippled Cat, Sumi, Kim Stone, and Greg Jonick to the Army of the Dead. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Welcome.
Yes, Raven Dark. Sorry, I have a bias for SMG. We know. I know.
She's really good at psychological. That's the thing. If you're gonna make a psychological horror film, you gotta cast the kinds of people that can do psychological and horror, and you gotta understand when you're doing it. There's two different sides to your character, and that's something I don't think Elizabeth Banks played on enough. Was it was more obvious and less. You got to be subtle about it. You got to be passive on a lot of things to be like, oh, all those things that she was doing was out of fear and not out of like evil. And so it's just you got to be able to play that, and not doing a whole lot of those kinds of roles prior to this, I think kind of hurt Elizabeth Banks, because again, she's great. She's a great actress, and she
they're all
is
phenomenally
diverse.
talented. They're all
But it's
amazingly
just,
talented. Yeah,
you can't. It's psychological.
I fucking love Emily Browning in both. Even though Sucker Punch wasn't a great movie, I loved her in that movie.
She was great in the movie,
and I fucking loved her in American Gods. She was
Oh, God, yeah.
terrific as dead wife Laura. I loved that. I loved what she brought to that. I loved her energy. She is fantastic. Emily Browning is amazingly talented. Elizabeth Banks is amazingly talented and funny as fuck. David Strathairn is amazingly talented. Fuck, if anybody has not seen Dolores Claiborne, I mean, shit, man. David Strathairn is like one of the is a unsung. Is great. So much talent in this film, and it goes nowhere. It just has nowhere to fucking go.
You know who they could have cast in this instead of Elizabeth Banks was Rachel Taylor.
Oh yes. Fuck yeah.
She was in Shudder. I guess right around the same time.
Taylor for those not familiar with Rachel Taylor, she was, if you're more familiar with like the Marvel stuff, she was in Jessica Jones. She played Jessica Jones's friend in that, like the blonde friend, or the adopted sister. So she played her in that one. She's magnificent. So I think Rachel Taylor would be great.
I think that would have been a good choice. But yeah, I mean, I digress. DreamWorks, it was supposed to make money. They had the money, so for that at that time, it did well. It just
Rachel Taylor would have been great. Rachel Taylor would have been a fantastic cast. And
because she comes off as you don't know which way she's going all the time. So it's like, yeah, I think that would have been a good.
I think there are a number of actresses who could have played the role of Anna a lot better, who just could have done more with that. But I mean, like I said, I think the film was miscast across the board. The technical aspects are there, but storytelling wise, not great. And I understand why they cast who they cast. I get why, but I would not have gone with those casting choices myself. I think Rich would have been fantastic. But my question is on this one. I know that there's a lot that I know that the love of American storytelling, the love of Eastern storytelling, and when these two cross, that it's very difficult to get it right. You see a lot of failure. You see more failures than you see successes. You see some decent ones like Ring, like The Ring and The Grudge. Some bad ones like One Missed Call and Old Boy and a number of others, just not great. But my curiosity is this. For you out there who watched this movie, did you prefer the original Korean horror film, which I thought was just fucking brilliant? It was just a brilliant goddamn movie. Did you prefer the original one, or did you like this remake better? Now that will come down to preference, whether you like Americanized the American storytelling, or you like Eastern storytelling. Either way, it doesn't matter. I'm just curious which one you out there listening, which one you liked more. So definitely let us know down in the comments below, or at weekinhorror@gmail.com, which one you preferred, the original or the remake. So this one, the Uninvited, or the original, A Tale of Two Sisters, the Korean horror film. So definitely let us know. Let me see. Tony Regime. Yeah. Her Tony Regime brought up her drug addiction story arc in Jessica Jones really gave room down. Rachel Taylor is phenomenal. I mean, there was one of the early films that I saw her in. If God damn it, was it Apartment 666? Something like that. It was about she played where she and her new husband move into an apartment that is supposedly a part of a hotel building. It was like Hotel 666 or some shit like that. But she was really good in that one. But yeah,
was it Hotel? Yeah, I can't remember what that was. Man, I forgot about that movie.
Yeah, I saw it years ago. But yeah, I remember Rachel Taylor's phenomenal.
Shudder. I remember seeing Shudder, and at the end of it, you're like, man, that movie was stupid, but Rachel Taylor carried that on her back. It was just
right.
Being able to walk into a building and immediately give an off-putting feeling. I can't remember if it was I think it was a camera store or something she walked into in Shudder, and it was like just the look on her face made me uneasy, and I was like, what are we looking for? I was like, oh goddamn, like you got me again. So yeah, I think that would have been great for that.
Tony
I
Regime
forgot about that. Is it Hotel 666? Go ahead.
I think is that the name of it? Yeah. But Tony Regime says sometimes Hollywood doesn't realize what story the original was telling. Agreed, they don't, or they have a very limited grasp on it. So that probably went into it as well.
Or they assume people aren't going to know, and that's what ticks me off. It's like,
thank you, Tang Whistle, 666 Park Avenue.
There we go. Yeah,
that was it. Thank you, Tang Whistle. I couldn't remember the name of it, but I remember it was like 666 something. I knew like the 666 played into it. Operation Free World says, what? I loved One Missed Call when I was like 7. I changed my mom's ringtone to the one from the film and freaked her out. Nice.
Okay, so I had the ringtone for the longest time. I too, apparently not so unpopular opinion, but I loved that movie. It was terrible, but it was so good. But yeah, I had that ringtone as well for probably a couple of years after the movie came out.
Joshua Lee says, did you guys know that Black Swan was a remake of a Japanese animated horror film called Perfect Blue? Interesting. Ooh, I'll take that up with Darren Aronofsky when I see him next time.
I guess we're gonna
fun
fact.
Gonna
add that one to the queue.
All right, so you ready to take on this next one? I know you enjoyed this one. I like this one.
This was a ride. This
is just balls out, just fun filming. Let's dive into it. Go ahead.
It's fucking Louis the 13th, man. This one is going to be Brotherhood of the Wolf. This came out January 31st, 2001. Roll it.
It isn't Venom.
This is weird. This is real weird.
Oh, Jesus! What the hell's going on? I mean, what the hell is going on?
Fucking love you mistaken.
Behind a veil of riches and reason lies a mystery hidden from view, killing all that get in its way. But now, two men sent to uncover the truth are about to encounter their greatest fear. A deadly secret, a dark power, even greater than they ever imagined. Universal Pictures and Studio Canal are proud to present an ancient legend. Now, a stunning cinematic vision. The film that took Europe by storm. Christoph Gans's masterpiece. Brotherhood of the Wolf.
So I'm going to butcher the hell out of all these names because this is very French.
It's so French. That would be the French.
That would be the French. This one was directed by Christoph Gans or Gans. I'm gonna butcher the shit.
Yeah, it's Gans.
It's Gans.
He directed Silent Hill.
Yeah, and I still butchered his name. And Stéphane Cabel. Is it in the back of the throat? Is that how you do it? This movie had a huge cast. There were so many people in this movie. It was insane. But top cast is going to be Samuel Le Bihan, Marcus Dacascos, Emily DeQuain, Monica Bellucci, and Vincent Cassel. Like I said, I probably butchered every single one of those. But this movie is...
you got Monica Bellucci, all right?
I got Monica Bellucci.
Everyone gets Monica Bellucci.
Yeah, you have to. But this film follows Marquis as he recounts
the Marquis. What the
Marquis. As he recounts
Marquis d'Apcher.
Okay, you got it better than I do. I can't. I'm sorry. I really apologize.
Because I listened to this because I listened to the names in the movie.
That's fair. I can't. But only because this is freaking amazing. But so anyways, this is he's recounting back to 1764 where this beast is terrorizing this countryside, and so people, essentially the Brotherhood of the Wolf, come in to capture and take care of the situation and things. And since Eugene is in here, shit gets really real when King Louis the 15th shows up. But this was an amazing, it was more about the period film aspect of it that was kind of just amazing. It cinematically was great. I loved this film, and I wish Eugene was here to talk about this one, because I feel like he'd have a lot to say about most of the aspects of this film.
It's okay. So I dug this one, even though I love this one because straight up, for anybody who hasn't had the opportunity to watch one that came out in 2001, so quite a while ago, it's pure popcorn, pure popcorn flick. It's a combination of multiple genres. Christoph Gans runs the gamut and pretty much just packs everything that he can. There are horror elements. There is thriller elements. There's action elements. There is, there's almost like kind of espionage, conspiratorial stuff. There's religious aspects, political intrigue, martial arts action in this. It's wild. So, but yeah, I got to give across the board. I loved everything about I loved everything about this one, and there's so much good stuff. And I know that there's a lot of French in it as well. I loved the casting across the board was fantastic. I thought that Samuel Le Bihan was a blast in this role, and his chemistry with the character Mani, who is his kind of like Iroquois companion, who's brought him from the French Canadian War, who joined him from the French Canadian War and has come over to kind of like pal around with him and do whatever. I thought that the casting of Marcus Dacascos was amazing in this one. Yes, it gets a little wild when all of a sudden at the time this is supposed to be 1764, so it's 18th century, and then you've got the fucking the Iroquois dude showing up like throwing kung fu and shit and doing arts and and it's supposed to be. It's interesting because both men fought in the French Canadian Wars. That's where their history is, where they both met, they became friends, and that Mani assisted the French during that time, during that conflict. And that's how the two of them met, became friends, because de Fronsac is actually Gregory de Fronsac, who is the main character, is actually a naturalist. And being that he is the king, he is the natural. He basically is kind of like the naturalist of the court. So to King Louis the 15th. King Louis, hearing about these events in Govardhan, decided to send his chief naturalist, like the leading guy, to go out and figure out what the hell is happening, because these reports are coming out of here. And that is because, and I love this fact, that this movie is actually based on an actual fucking legend.
True story. Yeah,
so they took this true story and then took all of these fucking elements and put them in here to make this fantastic film that is fun and intriguing, and it's shot fucking beautifully. I know where they shot it on location in France, but fucking hell, it's not just the locations, but how he shot this stuff, how Christoph shot these things. whether it was the slow motion sequences, whether the fighting action sequences, or the moments where it's like political intrigue, or it's like he's being a ladies' man and he's like hitting on to go just being I fucking love every single element of this one. Angel Rivera says, and the chief naturalist became natural fertilizer. No, because he actually kicks more ass than his Iroquois companion does. Especially when I love the sequence when he busts in there and he just drops down like fucking Iron Man, superhero landing, pulls out the sword, starts working on everybody. It's fucking great.
No, it was.
It's wild. So it's the story in and of itself and is fascinating. Now, the original story, the original legend is about the Beast of Govardhan. The Beast of Govardhan was it's become a legend at this point. It was an unknown. There were reports that a number of people were killed by this creature in the area of Govardhan, and nobody could identify what it was. The descriptions, I mean, if I remember correctly, the descriptions range from everything from like a lion to a spotted hyena to a wolf dog to whatever. But there were reports of this thing out there that it was like killing people, and then then there was a massive purge of the wolf population, and then the attack stopped. So either they got the animal or they pushed it away and they scared it off and it went somewhere else. Don't know. But there's that actual like legit legend behind this thing. And then Christoph Gans comes in and not only brings us kung fu and martial arts fighting, but also the political intrigue of the local church fearing the area of fearing France, moving away from God to work together with this cult, this kind of like Gnostic Christian cult, to create this demonic creature to scare people into coming back to church. And that like then the crown of King Louis is kind of like, what the fuck, because of the current like the battle in between Protestantism and Catholicism at the time, and the battle for the throne of France and control of France. It's fucking crazy. And then Monica Bellucci is like a fucking spy for the Holy See, and
it's wild because it's like there's so much going on. You've got historical accuracies happening at the same time as this legend's going on, and this is like, you got the French Revolution happening while this memoir is being written, and there's just so much like historical accuracy, and then they just like mesh together things that absolutely would not have been in the same place at the same time. And you're like, right. Hey,
totally.
You know what? I'll let it go.
Almost,
I'll let it go.
Almost Knight's Tale, and how kind of ridiculous it is at times.
Yeah.
Sarcasm, thank you so much for the super chat. Sarcasm for $5, $5 freedom dollars, says, but it was so boring. It could have been an hour shorter and lost nothing. Agreed. I will say that Christoph Gans took his time with this film, with a lot of little setups.
He had a lot of ideas, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on here. And I would say if it was not for the performances of everybody in it, not for Samuel Le Bihan, for Vincent Cassel as Jean-François de Morgan, not for he winds up being the villain of the piece, Emily Dequesne, who is not only a phenomenal actress but also like royalty as well. Monica Bellucci is fantastic in it. Jeremy Renier, Mark Dacascos is phenomenal as Monty. There's so many little things going on in this. It was Christoph Gans' attention to detail that I think is what makes this one so watchable and so enjoyable. And I will say that I think that while the ending kind of like, was a little kind of like, I think they kind of may have painted themselves into a corner, but he gave us so much, which was like so much fun that the beast ends up being like this lion that was armored and, that was like tortured and abused into becoming like this killing machine. And then it was like armored up and, turned it let loose across the countryside. And then Vincent Cassel, is the guy who actually did it. And, and plus, I mean, come on, where does that sword come from? The sword whip thing, it's like, literally, it's fucking Soul Calibur. It's like the Soul Calibur weapon that he utilized in this motherfucker.
That's, what? I do remember seeing in what was that one show where they pitted the warriors against each other in the simulation? God, I was on all the time when I was in college. But anyways, they had that sword in there. So it was like, but I remembered specifically it not being part of any of that history. So it was,
yeah, it's
yeah,
throw so much in there. But Travis Brown says too much Castlevania. I think, yeah, probably.
Travis Brown, Monty Python, or the full Monty? Yes.
I dug this one. I think it's fun. There is, I think there was a lot of things to enjoy in this one, even though there's so much packed into it in its running time. It's 142 minutes long, which is pretty impressive for telling this kind of story. It definitely could have. I think that Christoph Gans probably could have told it. I think that more of a Sleepy Hollow kind of take could have been really, really interesting, or maybe a kind of Brothers Grimm kind of take. Yeah, but I wouldn't say I wouldn't say the Terry Gilliam style, but I think like maybe a Sleepy Hollow style where they're brought in by the king and they're unassuming, and then it comes out, and then you have like one is like the physical badass, one is the mental badass, and the two of them work together to uncover like this plot or something of that nature. But maybe with a little bit more of a swing towards. Now this would go in the lens of like tightening things up, like Sarcasm said. There's so much that's in there, and you probably could cut an hour out of it. But if you did like a kind of like a Sleepy Hollow meets From Hell kind of idea, where there's this underlying plot to this legend that is uncovered, but eventually, the conspirators manage to like shutter everything. There's no evidence, and the French Revolution. They could use the backdrop of the French Revolution or the upcoming French Revolution to kind of obscure like what really happened. That's why it's lost to history. So I think that could have tightened up a little bit better to take elements like that. But otherwise, it's a wonderful film.
It was great, and I'm trying to think of how you could cut, because you could, but then you'd lose awesome pieces. Maybe split it into two different movies. I don't know. But it was, there was a lot.
I like I think the elements of showing their backstory, of showing like why he became a naturalist because of his aversion to war, and didn't want to be the guy that he had become. He didn't want to be the soldier anymore. So I like that element. I liked his connection with Monty. I like Monty, kind of like the fish out of water. Kind of like just dealing with this kind of society. I liked the rough approach of the outdoorsman amongst French polite society. I loved the intrigue of the Catholic the idea of the Catholics pushing against the Protestants, and that kind of like background information going on. Not to mention the lead up to the French Revolution and how things were going, which is why the whole story is told by a dude who's about to get decapitated in the Revolution. Like he's sitting in his cell telling a story of what happened, and that because no one reported on it, the story is going to die with him. And that's why it's the legend. That's why we never heard about it. That's why I done so many cool things. This is fun storytelling, is what it is.
It was.
With some really great elements. I thought that the monster was done quite well.
Yeah. So, God, you said Monty, and I was like, oh man, poor guy. He walks into that catacomb, and he's like, ah, shit. Yeah. Do you think I should ask them what they think?
Oh, what the real one was? You see, this is fascinating. Okay, so I was curious about this myself, and I definitely want to get your opinion. Like, let me see. I want to make sure I got this real quick. And I thought number one, I thought the monster of this was done so well because Jim Henson's Creature Shop handled the effects on that one. It was both puppetry and some CGI, but I thought it was really good stuff. And just just fantastic for the time period. I thought it was just great. But I'm curious. Let me actually pull this up. And okay, so yeah, I wanted to pull this up. So the idea of what this thing could be, I'm very curious. So yeah, go ahead, and you can ask them.
That's okay. So the CTA on this one, what do you think the beast was? What do you think the real beast was?
The real beast of Godavon.
The real beast of Godavon. Godavon. No, I can't do it. Can't do the French. But no, seriously, because I'm gonna have to read this book because there's a book on it, and I'm interested now. But it was probably just a wolf. It was. So if you go and read the quick story on the internet about this beast, there's a good. I think Wikipedia is where I saw the article. But if you read it and you really look into it and the time period and what was going on, it might have just been starving wolves where they were, the time and place. It would work out that way. But I mean, if you really want to go supernatural, there's 100 different cryptids that you could throw in there. It could have been a person, considering there was, I think they covered in women and children were victims, more, I think, more than men were in the original story. But what if it was just a fucking deranged serial killer that
that'd be fucking
eventually
wild.
It was part of the hunting party that went and killed out all the wolves, and he's like, this is my perfect escape. We got him, and then they move on. But
so the wolf thing comes in because, back in those days, attacks by wolves were extremely bad. And there was, I think there was, in reading history, in the spring of 1765, in the midst of the Govardhan hysteria, there was an unrelated series of attacks that occurred near the commune of Soissons, northeast of Paris, in which an individual wolf killed at least 4 people over a period of 2 days, and before being hunted down by a man with a pitchfork. So wolf attacks were pretty intense because there's a lot of agriculture, a lot of farming out there, and just not everybody had access to the weaponry necessary. Like I said, the guy had to hunt down the wolf with a pitchfork, in order to go out and protect their properties, protect their livestock. Now, history says that it was likely a pack of wolves, but of the 300 people who reported seeing this thing, though the descriptions are intriguing. So the things that have been posited is that it was a wolf or some other type of wild canid, a lion, that may have escaped from a menagerie, or a striped hyena that may have escaped from a menagerie, or maybe a particularly large wolf dog or a feral wolf dog that had gotten out, which is why it was so large. But there's another that the whatever this thing was, But I'm kind of curious what people are thinking here. Let me see. Let me check out this live chat real quick. The real beast, the runtime. Thanks, sarcasm. Appreciate that. Tony Regine says could have been anything from a wild dog to a bear, or Rodent Else says an overly aggressive wolf. Angel Rivera says a crazy man. Possible.
It's the problem. So if you read the story, this happened over what, 3 years? It was I think it was about 3 years that these attacks happened. There was 210 attacks and something like 94 casualties in it, but it spanned like 50 or 56 miles. And so you got to kind of take that into consideration, because it's that's a wide area to cover, not for a person in 3 years, but if you're talking about a local animal 50 miles out and having the same attacks, that's where it starts to get a little funky, because you're like, okay, that seems more coordinated than just random wolf attacks in one area. But so that's where it kind of gets a little funky. Good
to see you, Frayed Edges. Thanks so much for being here. Says, look what 2 lions could do in the Ghost in the Darkness.
It's fair, but I think I don't know about because the people that were partially eaten were only partially eaten. So if you're thinking hungry lion, I don't think they're going to leave too much behind. I think it would be a more full job.
I don't know. Interesting. Fred Angelo says a rabid bear or something that got loose from a traveling circus, an abused animal. Possible. Could have been a bear. There's a number of things. Oh, Left-Handed Jedi says either a dire wolf or a crazy Nord berserker that got lost, just killing people in the fucking south of France. Which is great. Sarcasm, thank you so much for gifting another 5 memberships to the Army of the Dead. Welcome, Frayed Edges, Andrew Forrest, Lisa Woodhart, Frauditor Watch, and Helson. You are now members of the Army of the Dead. Please enjoy the emojis and the channel badge that we've made for you. So thank you very much. Very generous of you, Sarcasm. Thank you.
I think Joshua Lee might have hit it on the head. I didn't even consider that as an option.
Honey badger. They don't give a shit. There's a honey badger running around fucking people up, fucking up French farmers.
How you talking funny?
So I think it's interesting. I like what Christoph Gans did with this film. I like what he brought to it. It's entertaining, to say the least. Just a lot of really fun stuff, and I liken this movie to kind of while it does have the horror elements of what was going on with the cult and the murders and the fact that he was using this animal to kill these people in order to kind of drive people back to the church and shit. This really weird, weird cult stuff. So it's so fucking it's so convoluted, but it's just so much fun. I liken it to movies and anachronistic. I like it to movies like fucking Knight's Tale, where it's just a popcorn flick that you watch just because it's entertaining as shit. Not to mention the performances are great. They're all just fantastic. Everybody was great in this one. So
if you're gonna fucking run off on a tangent in a movie like this, a historical timepiece that you turn it into a horror movie, which is hard to do on its own, and then you start mixing in all sorts of different subgenres that are just not something that you see. This is kind of a one of its kind genre movies. You don't really see it except for like A Knight's Tale. That's funny because it's like yeah. But yeah, so if you're gonna go off on a fucking tangent on a movie like this is the way to do it. It was done tastefully. It was done. Casting was great. Cinematography was great. It was a little long, but if it's gonna be, this is the one that it could do that in and be.
They could have done without the whole imprisonment, execution, and then revival of the guy.
Yeah.
They like that whole sequence. He could have been like locked up and then done the reveal of Monica Bellucci as like the spy for the Holy See, and then she releases him, and then he goes and exacts revenge, kind of like in a Yojimbo kind of like last man standing kind of thing, because the death of his friend, the death of his buddy, he's going there to avenge it. So because he gets released from prison and set loose. So the whole like faking his death, that dragged out way too much, and it just could have been,
sure.
Probably just went on a little bit too long. I think that section could have been taken out.
Definitely could have shortened that up by a good 45 minutes.
Yeah, definitely. All right,
Travis Brown.
Or it could have been Oliver Reed eating people while being drunk. I wouldn't put it past him. I really wouldn't. I wouldn't at all. All right, we have got one more to talk about tonight before we wrap up tonight's show, and I'll pick this one up. This next film, it's an early film. We're going back a ways. Released February 1st. Can you believe it's already fucking? It's gonna be February here shortly.
Stop.
31 month down, man. Fuck, the years they're just trucking by. February 1st, 1963. We have the macabre horror film Night Tide. Let's check out this trailer. Cue up the terror tube.
We're gonna need a new plan.
Hold her down! We have to kill Olivia! Stop moving! What the? No! No!
Boundless power ties these two together in a love tainted by strange, sinister terror. The siren song of the sea, pulsating like a bongo beat, calling, driving the sea people.
You saw how she looked at me, how she spoke to me. She's one of them. She's one of the sea people, and Johnny, I'm so afraid.
You're a stranger here, and I guess you don't know what everybody here knows.
Ellen, dear.
In the past 2 years, Maura's had 2 boyfriends, and they're both dead now.
I see you laughing over there. So that was the trailer for Night Tide. Came out in 1961 and directed by legendary Curtis Harrington, written by Curtis Harrington, starring Dennis Hopper in his first ever leading role. Not his first movie, but his first leading role. Linda Lawson, Luann Anders, and Gavin Meir. The film follows sailor Johnny Drake, who is currently on shore leave in Santa Monica, where he meets a young woman down at the pier named Mora, who works in a local, meets her in a local jazz club, and she appears as a mermaid in a sideshow at the pier attractions. But then, the question then becomes: is she really a mermaid or is she not? What is going on? And then things become very, very weird as Johnny is dragged down this story of missing boyfriends and the possibility that this woman is actually, actually maybe legitimately legitimately a sea person or a mermaid, or a siren, because there's a lot of references to the Greek mythology there. But yeah, okay, so I don't know what Harrington was trying to do with this role, with this film. With what he wrote, I'm not sure. I will say this, and it was pointed out that Casey Cooper pointed out the music never knew which way it was supposed to go. Agreed with this one. That the music of the film does not match the story they're trying to tell. It definitely elevated it more than it should have, especially when you have sequences when he has his dream sequence when he's like making out with her, and then like all the tentacles come out and it's like like this. He's like I mean, for a film in the early 60s to go in some of the direction this one went was pretty ballsy. But I think that the music choices were deliberate in order to kind of like elevate it away from the stark horror of what they were telling about, because the story itself is really, really fucked up. Because ultimately, the girl Mora, the character of Mora, has been gaslit from a young age by a guy who like found her decades ago, because she's several decades. He's been gaslit into thinking that she is in fact a mermaid, and that to make money off of her. And then whenever guys like come along and try to woo her away and make her interested in the outside world, he winds up killing them to get rid of them, and then gaslights her into thinking that she killed them. So there's this film goes into like psychological abuse, psychological horror, all kinds of like weirdness. But then there's the underlying. This is what's weird. While well crafted as a psychological horror, I'll give it that. And Dennis Hopper is decent, although really okay. Yeah. So before we get into that aspect of it, I think that's what makes this film so like compellingly strange, is that the elements are so dark, especially for early 1960s. The elements are so fucking dark. And yet, the way it was shot, the way it was cut, and the way the scoring of the film was designed to like try to pull it out of that darkness, pull it out of that mire, which makes for a very, very weird experience, a very unbalanced, disconcerting experience, because nothing matches what is. Not to mention they utilize like the African people drumming, which is a common trope for conveying dark negativity and stuff like that. And so that was a common trope utilized in early 60s, 50s and 60s films. But yeah, this movie is so fucking strange. Let me ask you this, man. I know that it was a different time, 1960s. I know. Mm-hmm. Dennis Hopper himself was a strange kind of guy, and intense, wild, damn near like lost his fucking lost his career because of his behavior. And then this was like his
so weird, yeah.
And then thanks to John Wayne, who actually salvaged his career, and he managed to land this lead role. And he's a method actor. He studied under Strasberg, and when he got his first leading role, is it just me, or was that just a creepier fucking time? Was he not pushy as goddamn shit? I mean, almost forceful in that. I mean, was it a different time? Is that what it was? Because holy fuck, man!
Who? No, you're not wrong, and that's the thing. Okay, so when you put it that way, you're looking at a time where that was the way that he was acting was probably normal. I don't know, but it's gone. That kind of behavior is just creepy, and
It was so fucking pushy.
but I think it was
Like, he is
pushy.
all
I think
up
it
in
was
her
creepy in a
shit.
different way. Yeah, no, absolutely. Nowadays, that is absolutely unacceptable, and that's like an on-site situation. But like, even then, I don't know. Yeah, it was. It was really creepy, but like in a gaslighty way. This was just a big gaslight. The whole thing was just they're touching on psychological horror in the 60s, first of
Right.
all. That's just that's like you said,
It's
ballsy.
a ballsy fucking
It
story
is.
for that time period.
Especially for the time period, and then for it to kind of go into like these themes of they touched on like mythology, and there was just a whole background of like information, and then the beatnik culture influence in this, these like these counterculture elements to the film, and then but they're touching on real stuff like mermaids and sailors, and like it's so back and forth. But yeah, Dennis Hopper, man, this is before he blew up in Hollywood, and I think maybe kind of foretold the way that his career was going to go. I think he played his future self in this character a lot.
I think that's who he was. It really does. I mean, you look at his performances, like they kind of like there was an almost manic quality to him, just like this energy that kept like trying to get out. Although he was really, I would say for Dennis Hopper, he was very reserved. But if you turn around and you watch his performances in his early stuff, when he was in Rebel, that I think was there's two movies, Rebel Without a Cause and Giant. And his work with James Dean, he had like this attitude. I know that apparently what happened is that he and James Dean were close friends, and when James Dean died, when he crashed his Porsche Spider and he passed away, that apparently really, really fucked with Hopper. And Hopper just kind of like went off on kind of like just it just really, really just fucked with him, and he became kind of a nightmare to have on set. And one of the next films he did, like he was such a pain in the ass. The director was almost like, "You're never like." I think it was fucking Harrington. Or let me find out, because he almost lost his career, and then it was thanks to John Wayne that he was able to kind of resurrect it, because he made friends with John Wayne, and through connections there, he's able to work again, and he finally got his first leading role after he started working with Lee Strasberg, and so he got this one. And you can kind of see that there were some elements in this that were really fucking good. That Hopper showed some real range in this. I like, even as raw as it is, as raw as Hopper was here, there was some good stuff and some good like emotive moments. But he's the only real kind of like watchable thing, and everybody else is kind of cookie cutter and just kind of thrown in there. And I don't know. Hopper played this like he had to take a massive shit in every scene. There was almost constipation to it. There really was. It was weird. Like he was holding himself back. Like he was like, I really want to like blow up. Except that moment when he's kind of like when he's in the jazz club, it was just so fucking creepy. He's in the jazz club and she's like hinted twice, I don't want to talk to you. I'm here for the music. And then I'm just going to insert myself into your fucking life. And then I'm so pushy, and then kissing her, that intensely, like just having met her, and then like coming over I'll come over tomorrow, I'll make you breakfast. That was almost the way she delivered that. It was almost like okay, get the fuck away. I'm going to say anything to get you to go away.
Just anything.
Just come back tomorrow at 11. I'll make you breakfast. Okay, great. Bye. And then it's like, what the shit?
I'm gonna go.
It's so fucking just strange.
Uncomfortable for sure.
There was a lot of uncomfortable moments in this, but the fact that fucking Harrington, Curtis Harrington, was willing to go something. Now, this is what's interesting about this. Now, you think about this. Curtis Harrington was regarded as one of the forerunners of what's called new queer cinema. And he did a lot of experimental and horror films that went into some very, very, at the time would be considered taboo topics. Like, he was one of those push the envelope kind of directors, trying to do what Hitchcock did in what, how he would tell these really, really fascinating stories that really played with, perception and, mess with the audience and, rug pulls and unreliable narrators. And of course, broaching topics like in this particular one, the idea of like, they think about that dream sequence, having a dream sequence where your lead actor is suddenly just like making out with this hot chick, and then all of a sudden all the tentacles come out and start wrapping up like that weird kind of shit. Harrington was known for that, and this is why. But this is
which, by the way, hold on. I'm sorry to stop
no,
you.
Go ahead.
That scene was, that's where it was like, okay, this movie is doing stuff that you don't see until much later in film. So like having that like. Because it's a dream sequence kind of, but like, oh my god, is it real? And something really bad happens, and then they wake up, and then it turns out there is a monster, but it's not the one you thought. You see this much later, but nobody really touches on it until later on. And I can't think off the top of my head what the first film after this would have been to do it. But that sequence was cool that they did that. I appreciated that dream sequence because they were trying to do something that without like. Without CGI and without it played really well, and I thought that was really cool. I just wanted to touch on that because it was a cool scene. It was a cool shoot. But it's like, I know somebody's a monster. There's a monster. This woman is in my life, and now there's a monster, and then make something up in your head. That was cool. Yeah,
they did some really good stuff. Really good stuff. In this, shooting in Santa Monica is a beautiful area, even though the film is shot in black and white. They did some underwater sequences, which were really, really impressive at the time for the early '60s. There was some really, really good stuff. Even simulating a sequence when when people are diving, and then all of a sudden your dive line, your line gets cut, and all of a sudden, doing the whole panic scene. I mean, at the time, was incredibly dangerous stuff, and they did some really interesting, challenging things in this film. My thoughts on the film in and of itself is that it feels like there was intense pushback between the studio, between AIP, which is weird because I get the sensation that there was pushback between AIP and Harrington on the direction that this film would go. Now, the film in and of itself, the way Harrington wrote it, is supposed to be a kind of like inspired by the poem Annabelle Lee. And thereby, and if anybody not familiar with that one, because the intention of the movie was to do a kind of like Poe. The AIP wanted to do a series of Poe adaptations, and they wanted to debut this one. And they debuted this one as a double feature with the 1963 film The Raven, which was written and produced by Roger Corman as part of his Poe cycle. And so they brought Harrington in to do this one to kind of have a double feature, because that an A film and a B film. And so. And this one, and it was interesting because that Raven, the 63 version of The Raven, had fucking Jack Nicholson in it. Jack Nicholson was in The Raven, and Dennis Hopper was in Night Tide, and the two of them would go on to make Easy Rider later on. So it's weird how the symmetry, how it kind of comes together. That they were both in this, they did this double feature back then. But I think that this was AIP interfering with Harrington's vision. Whereas if you watch AIP's Raven, that when that came out, that's more formulaic and much more Poe-inspired. Whereas it's kind of like, it took those elements and placed them in there, but basically told it basically had a standard story. Like, there's your story, and then the elements of like the Raven are kind of peppered in there. I think Harrington wanted to go in an almost dreamlike, very kind of surrealistic take on this one, where what is real, what we think is real may not really be real. And he wanted to go in a more artistic way. And I think AIP interfered with that and likely kept the more horrific elements, but is probably the reason why the score was such trash and why the score throws the whole fucking movie off, because the score just kept fucking with me the whole time. Like, it did not match anything.
It'd be like this happy, jolly music. And it was like, what, this is terrible. Like,
yeah. It's really, really strange. But so many interesting possibilities with this one. And, but, I can see, but Harrington was a challenge. Harrington was a director who wanted to challenge himself. He wanted to challenge himself, and he wanted to tell stories that he found were interesting, and he'd tell them in the style that he found fascinating. And at the time, likely pushback from because audiences. I know that there were some reports that when people saw the dream sequence, that it really kind of put people off the film. That the idea of the turning into the sea monster, they're like that really kind of upset some audiences because it was just like a little too much, push the tentacles, they're all, it was like, and then turning from the sexy scene, people weren't ready for that kind of the sexiness into the, oh God, the erotic into that extreme horror that for the 60s, that was really, really intense. But that's what you get from Harrington's films. He was
on the internet. That's a normal Wednesday now.
True, so true. Absolutely true. But otherwise, and I have to agree with sarcasm on this one. You can see the elements there are really fascinating. And I think Dennis Hopper was inspired casting. It really was. And I honestly, it's just so fucking weird because there's elements in there that you're going to hate because it's the early 60s. The blatant misogyny, the putting of a woman in her place. And then there's the psychological horror aspects of the gaslighting a person into thinking that they are a mythological figure. And then the ambiguity of the sea witch, the woman who keeps showing up and then just disappears. No one else to see her except for Dennis Hopper. It's really fucking strange. There's a lot of strange shit in this movie. Not to mention, and that does not include, and it's including Dennis Hopper, who himself is very fucking kind of weird in a lot of moments. Just creepy and pushy and just whatever. It's just a weird fucking movie. But I think you should see it because it's it's raw Hopper. So if you're a Dennis Hopper fan, if you like Blue Velvet, if you're a big Speed fan, shit like that, then yeah.
It's his first leading role, and you can
leading role. I give it to him. Yeah,
you can see he's he's trying to be himself, but also clearly has very specific direction. And doesn't want to.
He's got his own idea.
His first leading role, yeah.
He's got his own idea. I mean,
himself.
The film he did that almost cost him his career, early, it was like his third film or something like that. A raw Hooper as opposed to cooked Hooper, and Hooper's expression of having a strange shit. Thank you, Tony Regime. Absolutely. So the problem was that on one of his films, and I can't remember which film it was. I'm gonna. Oh, actually, fuck! I closed it. He got into an argument with a director, and this is early in this is unfathomable to me as an actor. Early in his career, he's got a couple of roles under his belt, nothing huge. Has never led a film. Gets into it with a director about how to shoot a certain take. Winds up shooting 80 takes of this scene over the course of several days, putting production behind until he finally acquiesced to the director himself and said, "Let's go with what you want," and then finally do the scene. That fucker was kind of you will never have a career again, because it was a veteran director that he was working with, and he was like, your career is fucking over. I'm ending you. And it was only because of the sake of John Wayne that Hopper has a fucking career at all. It was because John Wayne came in, and they knew kind of the same people, and they got along, and it was the only reason that salvaged that.
He was just having an off day. Let him back. It's fine.
And then he turns around and he punches out fucking Easy Rider with Peter Fonda and fucking Jack Nicholson and starts cranking them out. Just that, like some other actors, like Klaus Kinski, like fucking Oliver Reed. He's kind of like one of the wacky actors. Those intense and volatile actors who are just phenomenal when they are getting their groove. Holy fucking shit, they're so good. And I want to say hi. I saw Sir Little Wolf is in the chat. Good to see you, Sir Little Wolf. It's been a long time. Glad to see you join us. Gosh Heckfire as well. Good to see you. Look at all those green names, all those people who got all those new members of the Army of the Dead. Thank you so much for being here, y'all. And I see Jinju sticking out. It's the one black name. So, but good to see everybody. Yeah, Sir Cap says Easy Rider, then Blue Velvet, then True Romance. He was fucking amazing in True Romance. I thought he was great. Him and Chris Walken. That whole sequence is fucking brilliant because he's got that moment. I know I'm not getting out of here alive. They're not. It can't happen. Can I get a cigarette? Now I'm gonna fucking insult you to your fucking face. It's like Chris Walken's like, holy shit, man, what the fuck? Oh, I love that sequence. Yeah, Dennis Hopper. God, he was so good. I loved him in Apocalypse Now. Coppola, that was inspired casting the manic hippie war journalist guys. Like, yo, I fucking love that shit. Oh, I love it. All right. But the question that I have for the audience, given that this movie is thematically around kind of like mermaids or sea people, my question is, given the range of how we can portray how mermaids have been portrayed in, fiction, whether movies or books or whatever, do you out there prefer nice mermaids like Ariel and Daryl Hannah and Splash, or do you like horror mermaids like, Stranger, like Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides, or do you like the horror versions of mermaids, horror mermaids or nice mermaids? Which one works better? Which one do you prefer both? Or which one do you prefer? Or both. Tank Whistle says both. Tank Whistle says both of them. Sir Little Wolf says Cabin in the Woods. Fucking hell yeah. Yeah, merman. I'm never going to get to see a merman. Oh, be grateful, man, because the cleanup on those things is horrible. Until you finally get to see what it's yeah, this shit was fucking great. It's one of the best setups. Man, I'm never going to get to see a merman. Horror mermaids. A lot of love for horror mermaids in here. Horror mermaids. Love it. But definitely let us know down in the comments below. Remember, those comments really help with those interactions help with the algorithm. So we do appreciate that. But yeah, love it. I like horror mermaids. You like horror mermaids? I like scary mermaids. Where they eat
scary mermaids are the best because they were supposed to be scary. They're not supposed to be brushing their hair with forks.
Right.
Yeah,
Definitely.
That was the whole point.
All right. Dagon's mermaids. Oh, I like that, Javier. Absolutely. Definitely. All right. Well, that's the last one, and we're actually a little bit over, but you know what time it is. You know what time. It's been a minute, but you know what time it is, right?
What's that sound? Something sounds like it's charging up.
I think it is. You can kind of hear it whining in the background because it's trivia time. For so long we were using you to do that, and now we have it. Yes, it is time. So, for all of you out there in the live chat,
that's got to be so loud.
If you are the first one, and everybody's expecting now we got to kind of play with the timing a little bit. But for everyone out there, be the first person in the live chat to get the correct answer to this upcoming trivia question, and you will win a special item from the Week in Horror store. So, since you're here, Alex, take it away, man. Give them their trivia question for tonight.
Let's go. All right, trivia question tonight. What 2006 film was Dennis Hopper's final horror film? Again, what 2006 film was Dennis Hopper's final horror film? Throw it in the live chat. Let's go.
Raven says, what? You say something? That's right.
Best sound effect ever.
This is interesting because we get into Dennis Hopper, and I was like, "What would horror films? He's done some horror films, but what was his last horror film? The last horror film he ever popped in." We got some answers coming to Extra J. No, it wasn't Lloyd Kaufman. So Little said Land of the Dead. Nope. Tango said Memory. And nope. Travis Brown got it with Hoboken Hollow.
Hoboken
Hollow was Dennis Hopper's final horror film. Now, he did a few more films. It was about the time when he started doing more appear as himself. And he did some documentaries and stuff like that. But his last legitimate horror film was Hoboken Hollow. It came out in 2006, based off the Texas slave ranch, about some shit that went down in Texas that was really, really horrific. But yes, Hoboken Hollow was Dennis Hopper's final horror film. Congratulations, Travis Brown. Let me get your name down. Hey, I'm a poet, and I didn't know it. Got you down, Travis. We're going to get that printed and shipped to you ASAP. Well done. And I see that Tang Whistle also got Hoboken Hollow as well. Yep. Hoboken Hollow. Well done. All right. And that, my horror fiends, will conclude this episode of the Week in Horror podcast.
So good to see everybody this week.
We want to thank everybody so much for joining us. We truly hope you enjoyed the show. And if you did, smash that like and subscribe button and be sure to hit that bell so that you never miss a future episode. Join us next week when we look back at the brutal Norwegian horror Dark Souls, the full moon popcorn horror Netherworld, the Danziger-produced adaptation of Poe's The Telltale Heart, and the insane biographical black metal horror Lords of Chaos. Be sure to check out Josh Olsen's store at badsamurai.store. He does all the awesome artwork you see splattered all over our merchandise, which you can find over at Teespring. And for more from Week in Horror, check out all of the bloody links down in the description. Follow us on the socials for the daily splatter, your daily horror recommendation. Join our Discord for watch parties, big announcements, all kinds of horror shenanigans with us, the cast and crew. And support the show through channel memberships with the Army of the Dead, Super Chats, PayPal, or even through our Patreon for as little as $1 a month. You can support us, help us make all these fantastic horror things come true. What are you waiting for? Join us! As always, thank you. As always, thank you for being the greatest audience a horror podcast could possibly have. I'm JL.
I'm Alex.
We will see you all next week, and as always, stay scared.